What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got for you 3 entitled people stories, starting with this one, in which an estranged sibling tries to steal the trust fund of her sister. My sister seems to think she's entitled to my trust fund and lied to try and get it. There's a bit of backstory to this, and I'm not sure what's relevant, but I'm sure you'll tell me if I blather on too much. Mostly, I just need to rant. So, I am a 38-year-old woman, and my family is a little messed up. I essentially had 5 parents and 3 different groups of siblings. It's a bit much. As a child, I was living in the US with my adoptive parents, and a lot of stuff went down that wasn't great. So, I moved back to the UK when I was 9. I had a lot of trauma and the beginnings of a rather serious drug problem. And so my US dad set up a trust for me before he died so that anything mental health related was paid for and I didn't have to stress about being able to sort myself out as I got older. It's been rather handy over the last 30 years, paying for a home when I was a teenager, therapy, rehab, basically anything needed to help me not die. At some point in my teenage years, I made contact with my biological parents and their other kids, and I was welcomed, in quotes, back into the fold. Some of my full siblings had issues with this. Fair enough. It was a big change to everyone's lives. My little sister, now early 30s, apparently found it particularly hard. And so we've never gotten along, and we've been almost no contact now for a decade. This has become particularly apparent in recent weeks after she contacted the solicitors who are in control of the trust, pretending to be from a rehab facility in the US. She sent them an invoice for a 3-month stay requesting payment to the bank account of a friend of hers in the US. The first I heard about this was a phone call from said solicitors offering their commiseration that I was due to enter the facility, wishing me luck and double checking the details. I am livid. This is tens of thousands of pounds that she's tried to steal from me. Money that she has absolutely no right to. She never met my adoptive parents. She's not owed any money from them. She's lived a perfectly normal life with both of her parents, her other siblings, holidays, uni paid for, no big dramas. And she thinks that she can just take from me because she wants to buy a house and thinks that I should help her out because I ruined her childhood. Except she can't even just ask. She has to try and steal it. I don't understand at this point, guys, how OP could possibly have ruined their childhood. Just by coming into their lives a little bit later, how is that ruining your childhood? I mean, I suppose she was young when you came back into her life, but wouldn't you be happy to have an older sister just appear in your life as a young girl? I mean, I think you probably would be, I don't know. Anyway, let's carry on. I have no idea what to do about this, because if I go to the police, then it will create even more drama in the family that I could do without, and I feel like that's exactly what she wants. Our parents will side with her, and she knows it. I don't want to give her the satisfaction, but I'm just so mad that she chose this specific way to try and take what's not hers. It feels like such a low blow. Yeah, obviously she's getting sweet FA, but what the heck? Now that is the end of the post, but there is an update to this one, and also OP left an immediate edit to add some more information saying, because a few people have asked, my father had to bail me out of a trashy situation a couple of years ago, which included getting a flight to another country to come and get me. Obviously, I insisted he accept reimbursement for his flights, despite him not needing the money, so he would have had the details of my solicitors and the fund from that time. My sister often visits my parents, so I suspect she would have seen the information in my dad's office at some point. I've certainly never mentioned the fund to any of my siblings. I guess that's the questions in the comments of how do your siblings even know about the fund, which is a fair point. Now, the comments down below, unsurprisingly, say that the OP needs to go and do something about this, right? Because what's going on is illegal. So somebody said, you really should go to the police. If she had the audacity to do this, there is no stopping her from escalating even more. If your parents side with her, that is also useful information. You can't trust them and should be very careful around them. If not, just cut them off. Do not let these people treat you like this. Family or not, you deserve respect, and I could not agree more. As I said though, there is an update which was posted after OP read through the comments. So here is the update. This got pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. I'm balancing getting things done, and I'm tied up with not losing my mind, which is always fun. Solicitors are reporting everything for me, as they are indeed required to do. Turns out I'd misunderstood and thought I had to get involved, but no, it's all on them. And I'm going to just let what happens happen. I'll be setting up a meeting at some point to go through all of the transactions made over the last 20 years or so, just to make sure that nothing else nefarious has gone on. Thank you everyone for the reassurance that I'm not doing something wrong by wanting this sorted, but I'd appreciate a little less speculation on my life and the role my parents play in it if you could manage that. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I wasn't going to do that, to be fair, anyway. OP's not given too much context. I suppose I did sort of speculate a little bit earlier by asking why your sister would be annoyed that you came into their live, but whatever. Not important. The main point is that I agree with the comments. What's going on here is potentially very, very illegal. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing to do is just, talk to your solicitors, and if you have to, get the police involved. Simple as that. But, I mean, the main point is the audacity of your sister to say, I found out about a trust fund here. You know what? I feel like I'm owed it. Who knows why? But I just feel like I am. So I'm going to go and try and get it illegally. If anything, just got to rate it. All right, now for our second story. Entitled neighbor called police to my parents' house for my husband hunting on their land. My parents are retired and live in a little house on about 7 acres of land. It's not a big plot of land, but it's cozy and private, just outside of town, and about 6 acres are woods with a creek running through the center of the woods. It really is a very beautiful piece of land. Sorry, I've just got to stop you there. 7 acres of land is not a big plot of land. Now, I don't know which country this takes place in, but goodness me. I mean, if you had 7 acres of land in London, which is where I live, I mean, it doesn't even matter if you were in the most deprived part of London. That would be millions and millions of pounds. So, fair play. With the woods and creek, they get lots of animals going through, including deer. A couple of years ago for Christmas, we got my parents a few trail cams so they can see what is going through their land. My mum likes photography, and she's been able to get lots of photos of deer, foxes, wild turkeys, coyotes, and other wildlife going through their yard. Okay, so this is not in England then, obviously. As you may imagine, this is some prime hunting land. My husband occasionally enjoys hunting and has from time to time gone down there for deer season, but he doesn't do it frequently. My parents have had several people stop and ask them to hunt their land, and they always say no. Frankly, it's just barely big enough to legally hunt, and they don't want people all over their property all the time hunting. They have no problem anytime my husband wants to hunt, which isn't often, but he's family. There is a neighbor who lives down the road who badly wants to hunt on my parents' land and has been told no repeatedly. They don't allow hunting. Last year, my husband was in the woods and found a tree stand installed that wasn't his. Unfortunately, when they checked the trail cams, the SD cards had been removed. No proof it's that neighbor, but they suspect him. My parents travel a lot, so it would be really easy to do without their knowledge. My husband took the tree stand down, and I believe the cameras were replaced with new ones that don't need SD cards. Last month, before deer season started, the neighbor again asked my parents to hunt, and they said no. They don't allow hunting except their son-in-law if he wants to hunt. My husband decided he'd try and get a deer this year for deer season. So he got a deer permit and went on the first day of deer season. He shot a decent sized buck within 10 minutes of getting in the woods. My dad was awake and heard the shotgun blast and came out to see if my husband needed help. My husband got the deer field dressed, then my dad, who's the nicest guy you'd ever meet, got his tractor out of the garage and drove it to the woods, scooped up the deer in the bucket and put it in the bed of my husband's truck. So, hunting ended pretty quickly into deer season this year. About an hour later, a county sheriff's deputy and a game warden showed up at my parents' house. They said they received a complaint of unauthorized hunting and deer poaching. The officer said that same neighbor, they actually gave his name, called and said they'd been told repeatedly there was no hunting allowed on that ground. They'd seen someone go into the woods with a shotgun, heard a shot, and then somebody with an orange tractor picked up the deer and put it in the bed of a black pickup truck. In our state, if you're caught poaching, they can confiscate your firearm, any hunting gear you have with you, and any vehicles used in the course of hunting and poaching. So the neighbor was really hopeful that they'd take my husband's gun, truck, and my dad's tractor. My dad said, "This is my house and my land, and the orange tractor is mine. The black truck belongs to my son-in-law, who has permission to hunt here anytime he wants." My husband produced his valid deer tags and all was good. Also, screw that neighbor who had to be watching the woods with binoculars. There's no way he could have seen all that from his yard otherwise. I mean, yeah, what a life this guy must live, because I completely agree. How would you know that that was going on your neighbor's property unless, firstly, you had binoculars, almost definitely. I mean, if you have land of 6-7 acres, even if it's just like next door for me right now, I'd struggle to know what was going on unless I was looking through binoculars and seeing the specifics of someone having a deer in their truck or whatever. But secondly, what surely must be going on here is this guy is sitting by his window all day, every day, waiting. Unless he heard the sound of a truck and just like rushed to the window and got his binoculars out and was like, right, I can get them. That is probably what he did, to be fair. Anyway, it just sounds like a very, very nosy neighbor. But yeah, why are people so weird about hunting is the main thing. Like, look, I'm not for hunting at all. I don't agree with it. But why are people like surely you respect someone else's choice when it's their land? And what is the problem with this person hunting? Like, why is the neighbor trying to get this person arrested? Is it just the fact that they were told no and they're like, well, okay, fine. If I can't, then no one else can? Just weird. If you want to hunt, get your own land and hunt on that. I mean, don't. But if you want to, you can. Entitled Karen tried to steal my dad's inheritance. I apologize in advance for not knowing the legal terms in English. This took place in a non-English speaking country, so I've tried to explain this the best I can. Before I begin, here is some background info on the inheritance laws of my country. In my country, if you own land, you can't do whatever you want with it when your spouse dies. That is, if you have direct heirs, aka children. So let's say that you and your spouse own a large piece of land and you have 3 children together. Your spouse dies and you want to sell the property. Before you can do that though, you have to give your children their share of the inheritance from their deceased parents. It has to be a fair price, so market value. Once you've paid them out, you can then do whatever you want with the property. If you haven't or aren't capable of doing so, you can't sell. So, now onto the story. My paternal grandma and her 2 sisters owned a cabin together. When this took place in 2006, the oldest sister had already passed away and her share was inherited by her children, my dad's cousins. They're not important to the story. This story is about my grandma, my dad, and my grandma's youngest sister, Karen. Karen was the baby of the family, the golden child. She was superficially charming, had married up, and was very used to getting her way. I don't think she was ever told no. Now, Karen loved the cabin and spent most weekends there. My dad's cousins were not interested in selling their share of the property, but Karen had been wanting grandma's share for years. My grandma and dad spent very little time there, but grandma paid her share on all repairs on the property. Another thing about my grandma was that she never dealt with money of any kind. Grandpa took care of everything related to property, taxes, etc. He died a few years before this took place, and my dad had to take on everything related to this, as grandma was too anxious to do it. She never paid dad his part of the inheritance from grandpa, and Karen was well aware of this. In addition, grandma had battled cancer for a number of years at this point. It wasn't super aggressive, and she was given medicine that allowed her to be comfortable. She wasn't going to drop dead any minute. Still, she was reduced physically and was a very anxious person in general. In the winter of 2006, Karen paid grandma a visit. She stayed overnight, something she never did. A few days later, dad called grandma for a chat. Grandma mentioned that Karen had been there and that they'd reached an agreement about the cabin, that Karen had brought some papers for grandma to sign. My dad immediately knew something was amiss. What papers? It wasn't the deed, was it? Well, yes, grandma confirmed. She told dad that Karen had come to see her, that she wanted to buy her share of the cabin, that she'd brought the deed already, it just needed grandma's signature. She said that Karen had asked her for a price, and grandma, who knew nothing about money and the actual worth of anything, suggested $3,000. I think that's roughly what it is. It's a different currency, roughly the sum in today's money. Dad was livid. Firstly, of course, that's nowhere close to the actual value of the property. And secondly, the way Karen went about it, she basically ambushed grandma with the deed. She stayed overnight as well to make sure she kept complete control of the situation so that grandma couldn't call dad to discuss it with him. Dad wasn't opposed to the idea of selling grandma's share to Karen, but it would have to be at market price, and Karen knew this. Dad immediately called her, told her this was unacceptable and that he was going to contest the sale. Karen just told him that that was what grandma wanted, that she set the price herself and Karen had done nothing wrong. Dad got a lawyer ASAP and so did Karen. They went back and forth the entire spring and summer. Dad refused to relent. Karen kept proclaiming her right. Grandma was distraught. To her, a feud within the family was the worst thing that could ever happen. She begged Dad to let it go. Dad refused. This was his inheritance. At the very beginning of 2007, it finally went to trial. The trial only lasted a couple of hours. According to my parents, the judge threw the book at Karen. The sale was a blatant violation of our country's inheritance laws and was ruled null and void. The ownership was transferred back to Grandma. My mum later told me that Karen walked into the courtroom all cocky, self-assured, there to claim her right. As the judge kept going through the documentation and kept on asking questions, her demeanour became more and more defeated. At the end, she just hung her head. A week after the trial, Grandma passed away. Karen didn't attend the funeral. Oh wow. Before all of this, Karen and Dad got on really well. After, they would never speak again. After Grandma died, Dad wanted to sell his share of the cabin, but he would never sell to Karen. Ever. That was forever off the table. He approached his cousins, explained the entire ugly situation, and proposed them to buy his share. Thankfully, they were interested and bought him out at a fair price. After her defeat in court and the death of the sister she tried to scam, Karen spent very little time at the cabin. For the first time in her life, she'd been told a firm no. This was something she'd really wanted, and for the first time it didn't go her way. Clearly it was too bitter. There's no happy ending to this story, only a message that greed and entitlement can ruin your prospects and burn family relations to the ground. Well, there we go. No doubt about it. Greedy family members are the worst. And it's something I've talked about on my channel before. I'm very fortunate in my family that people like this just do not exist. In fact, I have seen just one fight in my whole massively extended family, which covers, all of England pretty much, and then a lot of Mauritius as well. And that's all I've ever seen. And it was like two people I don't even know, just at someone's party, like probably 10 to 15 years ago. Apart from that, easy dubs all around. Everyone's pretty chill, which is good. Suits me. I would hate to be in a family that had as much conflict as this. So yes, I'm grateful. But there we go. I suppose it is really a relatively common occurrence. Let me know in the comments down below. What's your family like? How many people are in it? And do they argue? I would love to know. Anyway, that is going to do it for this one. Get in the comments. And seriously, do you have disagreements? Have there been disagreements within your family about money sort of stuff? As I said, it's a very common thing, so I'd expect the majority of you to say yes. But yeah, that is the end of this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Drop me a comment down below. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you on the next one.